Welcome to the COSME Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Lisa Warman, and I'm so glad you're here. You were born at this time for a reason. The energy of this moment, its beauty, its transformation, its challenges, is uniquely aligned with your soul's path. You are here to live a full life of meaning, growth, and deep self-discovery, and astrology is a guide to help you get there. On this podcast, you'll hear from some of the brightest minds in astrology, along with inspiring thought leaders and voices from the wellness space. The intention behind COSME is to foster true community. That's why each episode is recorded with a live studio audience, because I believe the most powerful conversations happen when we come together in person. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. You're here for a reason. Welcome to the COSME Astrology Podcast. I am your host and astrologer, Lisa Warman, and I have the absolute pleasure today of sitting with Saki Savaki. Saki, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you. All right. So, Saki, I want to introduce you. And I know that you are more than an astrologer. You are actually an interdisciplinary artist. You weave in astrocartography, earth stewardship, and many other forms of spiritual practice into your work. Can you explain it a little bit for our audience?
Ooh, yeah, I can. So I'm an interdisciplinary artist. My primary mediums are, I guess you would say, like spiritual services, cartography, counter cartography, filmmaking. I really breathe through many branches, but really the root of my tree is an intention to ignite souls, uplift consciousness, an intention to remind all of us that we are earth stewards and that we are here to be in deep relationship and right relationship with the earth that we are on, the land that we are on, and the seasons that we're going through. So that intention pretty much weaves through all of my many arms, including writing. So yeah.
That's amazing. And nowadays they call it the big three. So do you share your big three? Because
Yeah.
I feel like that plays a lot into what you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am a Taurus sun, Aquarius moon, and Capricorn rising.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're definitely going to get into what Saki does a little deeper, and we will talk about Saki's work. But before we go there, I just wanted to acknowledge the audience. So thank you all for being here with us on this pre-summer solstice. We're almost there, just a couple hours. I do want to remind everybody that after the show, we do have a live Q&A. So if anything comes up that you want to ask that pertains to what we've talked about, please just raise your hand and you can come up to the mic and ask your question, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. Okay, so how long have you been in practice? And tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Okay. Sheesh. So I've been in practice, I would say, my entire life. I think more intentionally, at least 10 years. I do believe that I have been a timekeeper for many lifetimes. So I think that is where my capacity to weave many different lanes together comes from. I feel like I sit at the intersection of so many different identities and worldviews, and I feel like that's been collected over just time, over lifetimes. And I can't, was your question, how did I come to this?
Like,
Okay.
how long have you been practicing? And also, when did you get started? Where did you get started?
When and where? So, okay, I think more chronologically, I got started in college, literally just doing like birth charts in a journal, like
Cool.
writing the tables out and just really being of service to my friend group, to my classmates and my peers, and then just really stuck with it. I kind of really felt like my awakening has been a series of activations, right? And so I feel like those activations came really crowned down, which, you know, if you know anything about energy centers, it should be root up. But I think it came really crowned down. And then that allowed me to ping pong off of the people around me and just inspiring them. I do think that like the core of my work also is helping people zoom out of whatever thought forms and software programs that they don't know that they are subscribed to, which could, I think another analogy could be like, you're subscribing to something on Apple and you're just scrolling. Yeah, I agree. And then just clicking past it. And so I think a lot of my medicine is being able to say, well, this is the fine print of this agreement. And this agreement shows up in these thoughts. It shows up in these tattoos. It shows up in these emotional responses. And how do we get out of that? So I do lean on astrology for that. I'm a huge history buff, geography buff. So I lean on just all the tools that I have around me to help people kind of weave out.
I love that. And that's so Saturnian in a way. And you're really bridging that future and past in a way, because, and even how you said from the crown down, I think that's so Aquarian, it all comes this way.
Oh, you're reading me.
Well, yeah, sorry, I am reading you. Oh. Okay. Well, I'm not going to read you, but I am.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay. Well, I am going to talk a little bit about your bio, because I think your work is so special and it's truly so unique. And of course, that's why you're here today, because I want to talk to you about everything you do. And I want you to share this with our audience and the world. But, you mentioned you're an interdisciplinary artist, a filmmaker, and you're a healing arts practitioner. You also said your work bridges Black American spirituality and basically cartography exploration. So that's bridging, like, you said you're a history buff, you're into places. We talked a little before the podcast. And so do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's so unique. And especially for Tucson, I think you're the only one doing this type of work, honestly.
I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more concise in the question. But before that, I think that Tucson is such an amazing place because I feel like I do sit like at a very unique intersection in a lot of ways. And also I find that in all of these little like roads in this intersection, there are so many wise and integrated people in Tucson that are just specific to one thing, specifically maps. I was mentioning earlier that like I collect maps, I sell maps, I rework maps. And I love going on Facebook Marketplace because there are so many people reselling archival maps here. I have the coolest conversations with just like old school, old head dudes that are just like really into geography, really into map making, have maps from like World War II and beyond. And so I find that here. And then even just how Tucson is the astronomy capital of the world.
Yeah.
Of the world. Yes. So no coincidence that like I found astrophotography, right? No coincidence that the land holds and supports me in my explorations with astrocartography, because it's really what the land is up to in a lot of ways, right? And so, yeah, what was the first part of that question?
You got it, basically.
Cool.
It was like, I was wondering how you bridged all of this. So, and you basically answered it. So, another part of your bio is you said, through your innovative approach to countercartography, cosmic navigation, and energy work, you create transformative roadmaps at the intersection of ancestral wisdom and contemporary Earth stewardship. I know you're from Philadelphia, and you now moved here to Southern Arizona, and you bring a unique geographic perspective to your practice. And you are the creator, which we'll get to at the end. But this is so cool because I actually just found out tonight that you're the creator of the Layline Almanac, which you have with you. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, that's okay. That's why we're here.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that at the end. But okay, we talked a little bit about ancestral wisdom and Earth stewardship. So what is Earth stewardship?
Ooh. So my approach, I think many different practitioners might have varying responses to this. My response to Earth stewardship is truly what humans are meant to be on this planet. Think about just like, the ecosystem of rivers and oceans and how they function throughout the globe. How the Amazon rainforest is literally the lungs of the earth. It produces so much oxygen that we need. Ants have a purpose. Everything from a large scale to a small scale serves a purpose to the organism that is the living body of our planet. Now, what are humans' role in that ecosystem? It's to steward the earth. It is to maintain, you can look at like the national, what's it called, Forest Service, right? Like how they go into the national parks and they maintain certain populations. So I think that at the most physical, logical, left brain, tangible manifestation of this, being an earth steward is literally just being a gardener in a garden.
Okay.
I think spiritually, it can involve nurturing worldviews, being in relationship with varying different worldviews, understanding what worldviews are good for the ecosystem or for yourself. So it's really just gardening.
I love it. Yeah, and I agree, and we sometimes forget that role while we're here. And I think society kind of pulls us out of that sometimes because everything is so easily accessible for some, or it's busy and we just don't get that connection. So
yes. Can I ask something?
Yes.
So absolutely, right? Like I think that the psychosis of Western civilization is such that we have built an artificial society on top of the earth, which is one of the things that I love about Tucson, actually, is because living here, I don't feel like I'm on top of the earth. I feel like I'm within it.
Ooh, I love that.
And I think that that's like my approach to earth stewardship, right? It's like, even you hear people talk about like decolonial practices, cool. I think what we're all trying to get at is there is a more organic way of being in relationship with each other, our varying cultures and identities, and with the earth itself that isn't extractive, disempowering, and seeking artificial gain.
Yes, absolutely. I do know.
Yeah. Sorry, I say that a lot.
No, is that the question? Were you going to ask anything else or ask something
I was
about
just ping-ponging off of your response.
Got you.
Sorry.
Okay,
yes.
no, that's good. All right. So if for the audience watching and for you out there, if you have not watched any of Saki's reels on Instagram or just checked out Saki's Instagram in general, I feel like you embody earth stewardship to the max. I mean, you record these videos out in the desert. You usually have different elements, fire, and I just think it's beautiful. So you really, truly embody that. How do you take that earth stewardship and partner it or not partner it with astrocartography? Like, how would you work with your clients on this?
Oof, I love this question. So my approach to astrocartography is first and foremost as a Layline practitioner, right? And so for those of you that may not be aware of what that is, ley lines are pretty much like energetic highways that exist within and throughout the earth. And there's a guy, I believe his name is, I'm blanking on his name, but he created a book in like 1922, I want to say. And he popularized the word ley line. And in his perspective, and in his, I guess where he got in his work was that ley lines are just these European artifacts or European cathedrals or sacred sites that are on these really interesting mounds within Europe. So he kind of plotted where all of those were. Now, over the years since then, and specifically in the 70s, ley line work and ley lines as a concept of energetic highways that run within and without the earth became popularized, right? My relationship with this is that, okay, cool, this might be when it's popularized, this might be the language we're using to point to this, but the this that we're pointing to predates all of this. You can find evidence of cultures engaging in ley line work or energetic highway work in Japan. You can also find really great examples of this in Australia when you're looking at song lines. Now, song lines in Australia, and but song lines in Australia is like, they had, like the Aboriginal people, they preserved their culture through song, and then it would like travel through these energetic highways, and people who were not even in their location, who were not even a part of their migratory route, had the same language, same stories, same understanding, right? So my foundation of ley line work and how I relate to it is multicultural and varied, right? So my work as a Layline practitioner is a lot of what you said, like being an embodied earth steward. I work a lot with elemental energies. I work a lot with land spirits, and that's taken years to develop that trust. And so this is my approach to astrocartography. I'm not just decoding what astrological lines you have across the earth. I'm really, with your permission and the permission of your guides, tuning into what your agreements are with the land itself, what your agreements are with the elementals in the land itself and those land spirits themselves, because it's a complete orchestra. I could go off here, but I'll give space.
Okay, so
Yes.
one question.
Yes.
For those who don't know, and the way you practice, I'd love to hear it from your perspective. What is astrocartography?
Yeah, so astrocartography is pretty much the process of taking the key cusping houses in your natal chart, laying it across a map of the earth, and seeing which lands intersect with these particular lines and what kind of cycles you'll experience on that land, what kind of energy you'll experience on that land.
Okay, so say someone came to you, and not to make this in a generic way, but they had maybe their Saturn line through Arizona.
Ooh.
And you're also working with Earth Stewardship, and there's the energy of the Earth here, and you have a relationship with the energy of the Earth, the ancestors of the Earth, all of that. So how would you consult them? And what would be the first step?
So that is particular to the client, but I'd say it depends on what I am intuiting and what's coming through. So on a scale of psychic intuitive abilities, I am predominantly claircognizant.
Okay.
Which is like that psychic intuitive knowing. I mean, Aquarius moon, simple, right?
Yep.
And then in my sessions, I actually will turn up my clairvoyance and turn up my clairaudience. So this is psychic sight and this is psychic hearing. I don't really like to have them turned up too much outside of a session. And so during the session, when I'm tuning into the land itself, I am hearing, seeing, and engaging with that agreement, right? And then the astrocartography for me is secondary. It's secondary in the sense of how will this play out based on your agreement, right? So let's say, for the example, the agreement is one where this client had a great-great-grandfather who was doing like gold rush migration, right? And in order to get to California, he had to go through Arizona. And it was some real wild, wild west shit happening, okay? It was some real unsavory things happening with the Tohono, the Pueblo. The land may be like ill.
Yeah.
And then we bring in the astrocartography and the Saturn line. And then that would be like, oh, yeah, it's not that the land doesn't necessarily want you here. It's just that there are certain things you have to do in order to be in harmony with it. There's certain ways you have to carry yourself. There's certain businesses you might need to make. There's certain sacrifices you might need to make. So that would shape that, just to give an example, but it truly is particular to each client. I'm not on Twitter, drop where do you have your Venus line? Pay me $10 and I'm gonna tell you that's not my practice.
Yeah, and that's why I really resonated with your work when I found you, because I could tell that this was just not surface level. No offense to anyone who practices astrocartography, but this went way deeper. So I love this work and I love what you're explaining. I think it's so, so deep and amazing. So how has your work evolved? Because there had to be an inception point, right? Because you started working with cartography, like you said, and it looks like from what you've said, you use clairvoyance, you are claircognizant, and you use your intuition. You also use spirituality, and then astrocartography is the last layer. So how did you layer all this, and when did it start to evolve and turn into what it is?
For the astrocartography sessions specifically, right?
Yeah, or even just the work you're doing. Yeah.
Ooh, okay, so I'll answer for astrocartography and then branch out.
Okay.
Man, it just kind of evolved with me. Like it just kind of came with me. I noticed that like a lot of clients come, and they might not know that they're in spiritual psychosis. You know, I think we live in really interesting times where people are kind of getting booted out of like Abrahamic religious containers. And so, but they're not necessarily doing the work to undo the religious programming or colonial programming. And so they kind of approach spiritual tools with that same worldview and the caps that come with it, you know, especially like I'm talking about clairvoyance and claircognizance and clairaudience. And these are human technologies that are well documented in any indigenous culture, right? But some people might hear this and just be kind of popped against it, like, that's a little woo-woo, you know? Yeah. And that's valid. And so when clients would come to me, I think in a lot of my intake sessions, I'm trying to get a gauge of where they are in their journey. I'm trying to get a gauge of where they want to go. So I've had clients come to me for astrocartography, and they were planning like a summer road trip, just on some funsies. I've had clients come to me for astrocartography who were planning spiritual retreats, who were planning business trips, who were just simply visiting the ancestral lands that they came from. And so through this, I realized that, okay, there's a process of energy work that needs to happen. So I'll give you guys just like the itinerary of an astrocartography session with Saki. We start by doing energy work, and the lineage of energy work that I am trained in is transformative energy work. And that has its roots in energetic neuro-linguistic programming. So guys can do your Googles with that. I'm also, my family is also from South Carolina. So I'm also Gullah Geechee in North Carolina. And I'm also like from Philly, right? So there is an element of Black American spirituality present even within my relationship to energy work, right? Just a full-blown disclaimer, I'm not really into Reiki. Can't get into it. So an astrocartography session with Saki involves us setting up the energy container, right? So we are going to get on the same page. We're going to refresh our grounding cord. We're going to release any of that anxiety that might have come up about arriving to the session, what's going to come out of the session. We're going to just come back into our center. We do a little bit more energy work, and then we take a look at the natal chart and the secondary progressions. Now, for those that are not familiar with secondary progressions, it's simply how your natal chart has progressed from the moment you were born till today, right? It's just in a sentence. You do not have the same consciousness you had 0 seconds out of the coochie. And I love that we can chart that in astrology, right? Like, what have you progressed to? And so we look at that, and then we pop into the astrocartography. I limit it to 6 places simply because I'm going to give you 2 reads. The first read is going to be my energetic, intuitive read, what the land is showing me about your agreements. And then my second read is going to be astrological and mathematical, just so you have both, right? At the end of that, there might be questions, there might be things that come up depending on what my guides are telling me. Sometimes I have clients and they're kind of like, yeah, just do the session and then get out of there. Sometimes I have clients and they're like, oh, no, this recipe, or, oh, they need to do this. And it just depends. It really does vary. And then we weave out with a little bit more energy work. I absolutely recall my energy from my client's space. I send their energy that might have gotten into my space back to their space. Especially doing energy work. It's very easy to get entangled. No like fear mongering with that. It's just, you leave fruit on the counter, fruit flies come. This is life, right?
Right.
And so then we get out of there. And so that like process has just developed over just experience of like, this is like tweaking and playing with different processes and finding out what works. And that itinerary, that flow really works for me. And then I think to the other part of your question about how I got here in a broader sense, I am literally a nerd, right? Like when I was a kid, I love my mother, but I'm my father's child. I don't know if any of you guys would ever resonate with being the child of one parent over the other. Like, yeah, this one is my parent, but I'm like, this is my like parent, you know? And so we used to be in Philly on SEPTA, on like the train system. And he'd be quizzing me about the next train stops coming up. And my father is a Virgo sun, Gemini moon. I'm a Taurus sun, Aquarius moon. So we're both earth suns, air moons, right? So I loved it, right? He's like, what's next? I'm like, Aries. He's like, what's next? I'm like, da-da-da, da-da-da. And I'm just going. And so my father instilled in me intuitively from a very young age the importance of spatial literacy, the importance of knowing where you are at all times. And so when I became like a teenager and I'm just like, I'm going over here, I'm going over there, he can trust my inner compass because he can trust my outer compass. And in this age of like blue dot navigation, we've really gotten away from young people knowing where they are, which then in turn, young people don't know why they are, you know? And so that's evolved with my spiritual practice. I think astrocartography and the way that I do it really gives me the opportunity to engage the same map that I've seen hundreds and probably thousands of times at this point, but from the lens of my clients' karma and agreements with the land. For example, I had one client who was from Jamaica, and then her partner was, I think, Haitian, and I'm looking at Florida for them, and I'm seeing, I'm seeing the warring energy of like the Zos, which is like a Haitian group of like the Zos, the Jamaicans, the white Cubans, and how the energy of that is clashing on the land. Now, I think I had an astrocartography session a week before. I was looking at someone's chart, didn't see none of that. I think what I saw for them was more connection to the elementals and the water surrounding that, right? So seeing that like ancestral energy warring on that land, but I have permission to see it because I'm looking on behalf of this client's agreements, right? So that experience hundreds of times, I'm talking about like, I'll have clients that are like from Maine, but like their families from like Ireland. And now all of a sudden I'm engaging with like this really beautiful, like whimsical leprechaun, like Celtic siren, banshee energy, which also affords me the opportunity to see that like the spiritual psychosis of white supremacy also damages white people in a really real way, right? And so I'm seeing this during my work, and that led me to a deeper love of cartography itself, right? So I'm like, I need to get my hands on maps. I need to understand history through the ways maps have been illustrated, right? What's drawn in and what's left out, you know?
Yeah.
It tells a lot. And so then that leads me deeper into writing, deeper into astrophotography, deeper into making my content accessible. Because I feel like in my early like sharing what I'm up to, sharing my medicine days, I am really Aquarius moon heavy, and I'm trying to show people why the moment instead of speaking to the moment and speaking from the moment.
Oh, wow.
That's what people care about. People want to hear, what do I do right now? Not why should I do it?
Absolutely.
So very long answer. Thank you guys for listening.
No, that's beautiful. It gives such good perspective to your work. One question I have for you is, you just spoke of being in the moment. And also what I'm hearing from you, just the underlying thing out of all of this is you have such a deep relationship to the earth. So for the people out there who want to have that deep kind of relationship with the earth, or, can you give them some tips? What do you do every day? Because relationships take maintenance. And, the only way that we grow things, such as relationships, is to do it constantly. So how do you keep that going?
Honestly, you answered it. It's time. It's seasons. Are you committed to a land for seasons? And that's another like thing that I have with astrocartography, I feel. Like there is this astrological tourism when in order to really know the land, you have to be invested in it. I've been in Tucson for coming up on 5 years in July 26th too. If you guys are into the galactic calendar, July 26th. And it's taken seasons of me going to Marana at my campsite and learning that particular campsite. It's taken seasons of me being like, oh, I know what's regular and I know what's irregular. It's taken seasons of me to be comfortable to sleep there in solo camp in the middle of nowhere, limited weapons, and to feel at home. And I think that that's our approach. That should be our approach to Earth stewardship as well. It's not a like, I do this and then I get that. It's a real gardening thing. It's a real like, I'm here because I see the value in just cultivating in this present moment and just in being here. And, I'm sure that might support me later in the ways that I might need it. But really, I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for the presence. And so I think my daily routine, I would say, I walk a lot. I love going to the Catalina Mountains. I love singing. I love like just dancing in nature. I love like breathing with those elementals. I love creating fires. Oof. I love chopping wood. Oof. See my voice like going lower. Like I love chopping wood. I love tending fire elementals specifically. I love feeding the fire before it feeds me. So I think my primary earth stewardship practice is genuinely camping. It's camping. It's finding a cool spot and making it home with my bare hands. And I'm a little funny, I like to bring different incense and I'm like, y'all ain't never smelled this before, watch this. And I light it. And then I love to fire dance with saguaro ribs, like the dead fallen ones. And I'll definitely put on like some Michael Jackson for sure. And I started like dancing for the constellations. Y'all ain't never seen this before. And it's the humor that I bring. It's the levity, the childlike wonder. It's not like I'm going to call all 4 directions of the universe and I'm going to fast for 20 million days. I'll smoke a black out there, have a beer, it's because that is ancestral, that is being in the land. I think for Tucson specifically, and I think just making this more accessible for other folks, but for Tucson specifically, one of the offerings that I give to the land is amaranth, blue cornmeal, and tobacco. Why? These are grains that are from here. So I'm acknowledging the lived stories. I'm acknowledging the bodies that made these mountains. I'm acknowledging the thoughts that carved these trails. I'm acknowledging that. And then I'll also bring some personal offerings that are particular to my family as a deeper way of introducing my bloodline to this land. So whether you are in Arizona or whether you are somewhere else, I would really invite you to understand the natural plant matter that grows in your environment and really using that medicine. If you're into giving offerings to elementals or land spirits, you can do it that way. Or if you're just simple, like that might be too much, you still need to know the medicinal and the spiritual properties of the plants that grow around you, because that is the earth's way giving the medicine to that environment, right? And so that's what I would say. I think it really comes back to plant medicine and in a non-psychoactive way, to be honest. Yeah.
And Saki, was there a moment when you were creating your relationship here in Tucson with the land where you felt like there was like the relationship had been established? Because you speak of offerings and, just being out there dancing with the saguaro ribs under constellations, which is so beautiful. And you're actually having a conversation with the earth and with the cosmos and with these elements that are around you, but you're having fun and you're interacting, you're playing. So was there a moment where you felt like, hey, yeah, like this is a mutual relationship here?
Yeah. And it was painful.
Oh,
it was painful. I think that I'm going to be speaking to a very specific personal experience, but I think being from the East Coast and being Black American, there's a very specific orphaned pain that we are programmed to take on. And I say programmed to take on because after weaving out of it, I don't think it's real. But I think that you have to hold the pain of it in order to get to what is real. And so coming out here and being around indigenous communities that have language intact, that have culture intact, that have space intact, was really, really painful for me in like the first 2 years, I would say. I was really confronted with a lot of veils that I used to keep myself safe, that I used to keep my identity upright. And so as they're falling, it literally feels like I'm walking through like a thick trail of just saguaros, and they're just fucking pricking me. And every time they prick me, something comes off.
Wow.
And I'm like, which is like desert medicine though, you know, like that's the medicine of Tucson.
Yeah.
And the medicine of the Sonora is like, it will see if it will test your might. Okay. And so I feel like once I like spent a lot of time holding that perceived pain, and then also just learning more about like one of my favorite counter cartographers, Victor H. Green, who wrote the Green Book, right? And this was like during like the 1930s, where like Black Americans could only really get hired at Henry Ford factories in Detroit. So this is where you get the part of the Great Migration story, where Black Americans from like Mississippi are just running to Detroit to just work in those factories. And it's kind of poetic because they're building these cars, and in their minds, these cars are the creation of these cars are running parallel to their perceived freedom, to their perceived path to the middle class, you know? And he created this counter cartographical book that listed all of the restaurants, B&Bs, mechanics that would just service Black people, because we got to remember, we're still dealing with segregation, right? And so just reading about how him and his wife made this, and it was such an underground counter cartographical thing where they had like these goddamn mailmen that's just like shipping them out here and left and right. And they're like, we're going to pursue this land regardless of the psychosis of white supremacy. We're going to pursue this land. We're going to create our own space, right? And so coming out in Tucson, which Tucson is in the Green Book, okay? There's a couple places, like 2-3 places, which is cool. Oh. But I think coming here and then having to figure out what is my spiritual territory in a container that I know is not mine. You know, and the East Coast is really interesting. Like the 13 colonies energy is really strong, you know? And I think that a lot of Black Americans, because we exist along so close up to that psychosis, so close up to that supremacy, that perceived white supremacy, which is the psychosis, it's like the existence is resistance. You know, for better or for worse, oftentimes for better, but that proximity is there. And so coming here and having space, like you asked me, like, what brought me out here? And I'm like, the space. The first time I came to Arizona, I felt like, wow, I've never breathed before.
Wow.
I've never exhaled before. You know, I'm from Philly. I went to college in Morgan State, and these are really hyper congested places, especially energetically. And so in this space and in this exhale, Tucson really allowed me to investigate the beliefs that I had that weren't really mine in order to get to what mine is, you know? And from that place of not pursuing or looking for someone else's culture to validate me, I can actually engage that culture with my own lived experience and self-concept intact. And then something more powerful can happen. And I feel like that experience of orphanage especially is just very American, to be honest, because I know many first generation Caribbean Americans who they'll go back home and they're like, I'm not Jamaican enough for them, but I come here, I'm not Black American enough here. Or I know, I have like Irish friends who feel the same way. They'll go back home and it's like, but you're from over there though. But over here it's like, what's really intact? So I think it's a deeply American experience, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is powerful. And, you know, for anyone, you know, to circle back, for anyone who wants to work with the earth, you just started connecting. You got out there. You went to a place. How'd you find your Marana campsite?
YouTube.
Oh.
Okay. Literally like learning about BLM land,
yeah.
Bureau of Land Management.
Yeah.
And like how they just have these like little pre-made fire pits. As long as you're not there for like more than 14 or 28 days, you're fine. But honestly, who's checking?
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you're really in the middle of nowhere, so I do not recommend that. But yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Well, how we were kind of talking about this before we started recording, and it was just such a potent question, in my opinion, because I loved your answer. I asked you, why should everyone be using astrocartography? And yeah, what do you think?
I don't think everyone should be using astrocartography.
Yeah, what's up with that?
So I feel like we are in an age where everything is accessible, and sometimes that can make us arrogant to the etiquette of engaging a new place, right? And so there is a wave of just new age colonialism that I see, where people are prioritizing how they're interpreting a Venus line or a Jupiter line and how beneficial it would be for them, and then going to a land where the people are vocalizing that they don't want you there. So for example, you could say, oh my gosh, I have a Venus line over Hawaii, I'm gonna go to Oahu, I'm gonna da-da-da-da. But it's like, unless you have direct contacts on that land, 9 times out of 10, that land does not want you there. 9 times out of 10, those people do not want you there. They are going through their own decolonial upheaval, and tourism has ruined that place. I just saw a video the other day about how the Louvre had to be shut down because of the vast amounts of tourism and them being understaffed. Same thing is happening in, I believe, either Barcelona or Madrid. Is really hitting Europe really hard, interestingly enough, which kind of feels karmic in a way. But they're like, it's too much tourism happening. You're hiking up the prices for local people. You're taking businesses out of order, they closing. And I think a lot of people are using astrocartography to bypass that. If the land doesn't want you there, if the people don't want you there, why are you going? And especially if you're only going there to idealize the place, to romanticize it. My very close friend, her mother is Jamaican, her father is Trinidadian. She just came back from Cayman Islands on Wednesday, and she has a lot of family in Cayman. And we were having a deep discussion about how a lot of white people, European people, have come to the West Indies, have come to the Caribbean to build their paradise, but don't give a fuck about the people that were already there. So their idea of paradise is all that's there. It's like, Hawaiian, like White Lotus, it's just like, White Lotus is a great show. But, it's like White Lotus, like Hawaiian shirt, and I'm gonna go to the beach, and da-da-da-da. But the Caymanians that are there can't afford to be there, really, And so I'm not, and I feel like a lot of people that use astrocartography use it in that way. They're not seeking places that have squares so that they can be another pore that the earth breathes its pain through, that the earth expels like a zit, like the earth just pops through. You know what I mean? They're not, I feel like that's like true earth responder. Don't get me wrong, I'm not romanticizing pain. I do think that like you can go to a place and be part of its joy, but I think there's a big wave of people only seeking or using astrocartography as a astrological permission to vacay somewhere.
What would you say to someone who is going to book a session and they come to you with that kind of intention? I mean, would you explain to them what you just told us?
Well, I have a set of preliminary questions that each client gets before we arrive to the container. And I think that those questions really help break that up, to be honest. And also, I think at this point in my practice, I rarely attract those types of clients, to be honest, especially because I don't really do a lot of promoting. Like, I'm not like on the internet, like, oh, if you go to this is your Jupiter line. I think they even have like AI astrocartography ads on TikTok now. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like this guy, and it's like, you're not even real. But I think the preliminary questions that I send to clients, and some of those questions are like, what cultures have you always been drawn to? Money and time is not a factor. What 3 places would you go right now? Like, what is your relationship like with your ancestral lands? So I think those questions kind of, and there's more, but I think some of those questions really help the clients get out of that extractive lens, because even if you're vacationing, you're always going to receive more from the land if you're pursuing the land and not commerce.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Okay. That's brilliant. So if you guys are wanting an astrocartography session, you want to get real about it and go to a place that really will support you. I think it's a relationship like we talked about. You have to go to Saki. So what about Earth stewardship, though? Why should everyone practice Earth stewardship? Because I do feel that that is important, especially right now in our world. I mean, to have a relationship with the Earth, I mean, it's such a primal thing and we're losing it or we're gaining it. There's like almost two sides of the coin right now. What do you think?
One, you hit the nail on the head. I think that Earth stewardship clicks in with like your being. It's the most primal part of being a human. It is, do you check on your neighbors? Do you sit and have conversations with people that you see on your everyday route? What kind of organism are you to your environment? Are you extractive or do you give? You know what I mean? Are you in relationship? Don't get me wrong. Boundaries are good. We love boundaries. You know, you might not have time, might not have capacity, but at the same time, it's like just being a part of your environment is a function of Earth stewardship, you know? I think, of course, the way that I do it, and there may be folks that want to be a little bit more intentional, like in those ways, but I don't want to, and we can speak about that, but I don't want to minimize just being in your environment, being in your neighborhood. You know, being active with your neighbors. You know, if you have elderly neighbors, do you guys need anything? You just need to talk today. Like that is also Earth stewardship. You know, visiting your local museums and, you know, just allowing your money to spending your money in your environment.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as much shit as I can talk about like a Western civilization and colonialism, this is still where we are. So how am I functioning in it? You know, I go to the Flandre religiously. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Love the planetarium. Okay. You know, I visit these botanical gardens often, you know, these are created oases here. They're common grounds for us to connect with each other. And so, I think in a more intentional way, I am creating a book called The Etiquette of Engagement, a pocket guide for the budding and blossomed Earth stewards. And so this will have more illustrations around creating different Earth altars, elemental altars, if that's the sort of thing you're into. But even without getting that, I would say follow your first mind. If you were to create an altar that represented the Earth, what elements would you need? You know, earth, fire, water, air, okay. Like a feather, okay. Like a rock, a candle, a cup of water. Okay, that's an altar. What are your intentions that you're building on that altar? Okay, and yeah, I'll say that, but yeah. So I think it's, it can be as accessible or as elaborate as you're ready for. And I think that oftentimes that unfolds with your readiness and your deepened commitment.
Beautiful. That's so third house.
I have a third house stellium and my Saturn is in the third house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm hearing third house,
Yeah.
neighbors,
Yeah.
neighborhood.
You're on it.
Okay.
I love
I'm
it.
just calling it. All right. So another question for you. I watched one of your most recent reels on Instagram, and you were speaking of Cancer season. And what you said is Cancer season and liberation dates in Horn of Africa. You asked, how do we build home that sustains rather than restrains? And I just resonated with that so much because it made me think, and I didn't really have an answer right away because I was thinking about it like broadly. So can you elaborate on that reel? And if you haven't seen it, for any of you out there, I would recommend watching it. It was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does that interplay with Earth stewardship? And, you know, it seems like it's a very deep-rooted thing that you were explaining.
Yeah, I think you get to a...
Maybe if we start with what you meant by it, and then, yeah.
Oh, no, I have so many answers that I'm just trying not to. I feel like I'm tangenting so much, so I'm trying not to tangent too much. At this point, might be really late in the game.
You're good.
Yeah, like how do you build home that sustains rather than constrains? So what I meant by that was literally when we are in this womb pocket of Cancer season, right? How do we share community, share home? How do we share our vulnerabilities, share our niches, but not in a way that is like we're hyper monitoring how someone else receives them? That's the constraining part. Your only job is to show up and just take up space and be yourself. And when you try to micromanage how someone else is receiving it, then it gets sticky. I think when we bring in the earth stewardship piece of it, I'm pretty sure I answered it already, to be honest. It is that deepening of commitment to being in a place and learning it over seasons, allowing it to flower over time and trust. And that's how you build that. It becomes constrictive if you just like, I'm just gonna, like, the first time I ever camped out in Marana, you guys, I was so excited. I bought so many things. And I got to my campsite at like 10 a.m. It was done set up at 11 a.m. It's July. And wow. my tent was a fucking sauna. I'm like, damn, I'm just gonna be out here, okay. And it was constraining. It was constrictive. I had to just sit under my gazebo for like hours and like wait for the sun to set. And my mom called me and she was like, okay, you did it. Are you gonna come home now? It's like, no, I have to stay overnight. And I felt like my commitment to just seeing just that one example all the way through deepened my sense of home at that campsite. You know, there's so many different like little fire pits there. I promise you, I've only ever gone to 2.
Wow.
In the four consistent years that I've been camping there.
Wow.
It's that commitment to, I'm going to learn this land. I'm going to, and in turn, I'm going to learn myself. This also this might not work for y'all. You know, I'm just a fixed sign for real. So I'm just like repetitive, you know.
I do too.
Yeah. So there's some astro math there. You might have the constitution that permits you to flutter, fly around. You know, my constitution is such that you have to just keep going and keep returning, especially when it's difficult, especially when it's hot. You know, I learned a lot about not camping at my site during monsoon season because I got caught in a flash flood. There are no buildings around. My car is rocking.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot see the way out. And I learned I had to go through that season to understand that though, right? So it's just that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are like literally minutes away from Cancer season. And I love that you brought this up on your reel. And what would you say for people who are thinking about their literal home, like their 4 walls? Do you think this pertains to that, or okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Your home is your womb. You know, your home holds your growth. It holds your seasons. It holds your dirty pockets where you ain't washing nothing. You ain't cleaning nothing. You're just fucking couch potatoing. It holds those pockets where you're inspired. It holds the thoughts. It holds those emotions. And so, yeah, like super emphasis on grounding your home and being grounded in where you are, which I do a process where I actually literally, it will energetically ground my home, you know, and I allow it to be updated with the season that I'm in. You know, I treat my home like a gallery. So I actually just finished redecorating my house. And like even that, it allows my home to grow and breathe with the thoughts that I'm having, with the emotional states that I'm in. It allows it to echo and transmit that state more clearly. And that is the basis of my cleanliness. Because if I didn't have that, I think I would be way more junky. To be honest.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's the shadow side of Virgo energy that people often don't. I feel like people just talk about Virgo energy as like hyper clean. I don't know. There's just a lot going on in them. There's a lot of thoughts.
No, there is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
There are very messy Virgos who are very clean in public, but at home, it's like, who's that character from the Peanuts? Is it called Dirt Devil or Pigpen? It's okay. You know, it's just like so dirty. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. We've talked a lot about Earth stewardship and astrocartography and just all of the I don't want to use the word magic, but intention and beauty you bring to those practices. I want to segue a little bit into astrology. So what are some of the most potent astrological transits that you personally are looking forward to from now to 2027?
Ooh. So Uranus in Taurus is ending in a few days. As you guys have been hearing, I'm a Taurus sun and Aquarius moon, and Uranus rules Aquarius. And it's been here since 2017, 2018. And I am so happy to be free. I feel like I've just been undergoing such intense character development, to be honest. And character development in conjunction with standing on my authenticity and my medicine and really perfecting my self-concept of it and not being so sensitive to other people's distorted, limited views. That's literally what I've been doing the past almost 10 years in so many different ways, right? So the transit that I'm most looking forward to is Uranus in Gemini, which I believe it'll be there till about 2033. And so I'm looking forward to that because I feel like that transit will be a layering effect, a flowering effect of me taking all of this intense character development, personal development to my family, to immediate community, very third house. I think a lot of this is just third house talk for real, but I just want to be of service, not of servitude. There's a difference, but of service and in relationship and play and lead with curiosity and just, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that transit. I think the other transit I'm looking forward to, which is very Capricorn rising of me, is my Saturn return, which just started.
Yeah.
It's about you. That chuckle sounded so menacing. What do you know that I don't know? That chuckle was like, oh, it's like a child would say that.
Yeah.
I mean, my Saturn's in Aries, is in the third house. I think a lot of things with my grandma, who's also in Aries, have been coming up immediately as soon as this transit went into effect. I think that I've done a lot of character development and integrity work. And so I think my excitement is really cardinal. It's really what you got? I know that's a crazy ask, isn't it? I shouldn't be asking that.
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
That cardinal energy. Yeah, absolutely. What you got, let's see,
What you gonna make out of me?
Well, if you've been doing all the work and you have a lot of fix too, let's see what opens up now because you're ready for that.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So, Saki, say someone on the street just randomly came up to you. They're like, hey, what are 3 things, habits, or rituals that they can work on right now to create freedom in their life, understanding, and self-discovery? What would you say? Or even to our society right now, what would you say are ways we can create freedom and understanding and self-discovery?
First one, I'm going to echo what I've been saying, which is being in your environment, really making a consistent effort to understand the plant matter, understand the types of people that are here. Like I was mentioning earlier about Tucson got some real old school nerds here. Okay. They will, and I'm one of those people that loves to be mansplained to. Yes, tell me step by step how this works. And why my telescope is shit. Let me know. They will tell you. And I welcome it. Honestly, because I need to know why it's shit. And so, just being in your environment, understanding the types of people that are here, really super third house, really taking efforts to go to a coffee shop, have a conversation with people. It's really that simple. I think a lot of times in these spiritual spaces and conversations, we can be super idyllic, we are in such strong pursuit of new earth and 5D that we forget that we're in bodies.
Yeah.
And bodies have cravings. You're not going to die if you have a beer. You're not. You're not gonna your psychic abilities aren't going to dissipate forever if you smoke a cigarette. It's not that deep, So I think that remaining deeply human and allowing yourself to fuck up, allowing yourself to be with your shame and your embarrassment, because truly, what kind of leader can you be if you are still avoiding your own shame and embarrassment? So I think that's like baseline for me.
And that's the freedom piece, because
Yeah.
once we understand all aspects of ourselves, we're more free.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because we have to have the range to float in everything. Otherwise, you're ill-equipped when winter comes. You're ill-equipped when you just, your fucking thought forms got hands and he's just punching you in the head. And you're like, the thing I did when I was in 5th grade, why did I do that? And you can't swing back. You can't control your own mind. You can't control your own vices because you're embarrassed and ashamed of them, so they control you. So that, and then also your environment part, like, you're feeling isolated in those winter seasons because you don't have communal connections in your immediate environment outside of what they can do for you. So that's essential. And then the second thing I'd say for those that are, I think just more interested in like earth stewardship work and maybe altar work, as I would say, work on an elemental altar. And for me, altars aren't places where other entities or energies, thought forms, or frequencies are doing work for me. For me, altars are places where I'm anchoring the direction that I'm going to, whether it's like physically, whether it's like a picture, whether it is like, I need my maps in Clark Atlanta University textbooks. I need my maps I need an honorary doctorate from Duke and Princeton. Oh yeah. Whether it's that, like my altars are anchoring that, and my altars are keeping me upright and forward facing. My altars are reminders of the work that I need to do myself. And so I think having a place in your home where like I guess you could look at it as like a broader, more grounded, more spiritual vision board. But for me, it's also character development. It's also like my altars echo back to me my blind spots, and they show them to me viciously sometimes. And so that would be my second thing. And then my third thing is probably the most important, you guys, actually, is just go do the dishes. Yeah. Do the fucking dishes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like literally, or just keep up with routine?
Oh, no, like literally. Like,
Okay.
I think like, once again, like we neglect cleanliness. We neglect physical, like, routine. We neglect what it takes to maintain being on your own individual medicine path sometimes, And so honoring that, like if the house needs to be cleaned a certain way before you can actually go to sleep, just do it.
Totally. Yeah. Step by step. Absolutely.
This is something like so Gemini, Virgo. It's so cute.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm just thinking of your earth sign, and I'm like, oh my gosh, of course. Like it's just kind of the practicality. Hey, do this first and keep it linear and keep going, step by step. Totally. Okay. Well, one of the last questions, I love books. I collect books, and I always ask every guest on the show, what are you reading right now?
Okay. I brought it.
Yes. And I love
reading.
that you brought it.
Yes. Hi, guys. There's a book called A Darker Wilderness, Black Nature Writing from Soil to Stars. It is a collection of beautiful essays. It's educational, but not in a scholarly way. It's educational in a heart-centered way. These are a collection of essays by Black writers who are writing about their connection as Black Americans to this land across many generations, right? There's an essay in here by Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who just did the biography for Audre Lorde. I don't know if you guys know Audre Lorde, famous lesbian poet from like St. Croix. So there's really beautiful earth-based essays here. And I just love thumbing through them. They make me cry. They're so cute.
Aww, that's amazing. All right. I'm going to put that in the show notes for anyone who's interested. And then what are you working on right now? And can you also explain a little bit of what you worked on? So the Layline Almanac, because that's amazing. Yeah,
that's probably going to be my longest spiel. So I'll start with what I'm working on. I am right now working on a collection of maps called the Great Hoodoo Migration Maps. And so these maps chart the migratory pathways of Black Americans from 1900 to 1972 when they were traveling north, west, and sometimes even to Alaska. Oh my gosh, to flee segregation. So I love to. So the map collection charts that, and then they also chart the hoodoo lineages that followed those migratory pathways. This is really particularly important to me because as a person that studies maps, it's so rare to see Black American cartography in America. Shout out to the only Black American cartographer I could find, and her name is Louise E. Jefferson. I'm writing a really cool piece on her too. She has beautiful pictorial maps. So yeah, this collection of great hoodoo migration maps charts both of those things, and then they also chart the cash crops that were damaged alongside Black Americans during enslavement, right? A lot of Black Americans have deep resistance to cotton, to tobacco, to rice, to all of these different, to sugarcane, to all these different cash crops, and even to things like magnolia trees or oak trees or Spanish moss because of what those plants and trees were used for, like lynching and things like that. And so by plotting that on a map, my invitation is for Black Americans to fold in that pain and to heal it, because these were cattled just as we were cattled, right? So this should not be the target of your pain. So I'm working on that. Yeah.
Just working on that.
Yeah, I think a lot. I don't know,
Wow.
guys. I think a lot. And then I am also working on, like I mentioned before, the etiquette of engagement, which is a pocket guide for the budding and blossomed earth stewards. So if you guys are like, just a quick little like, I'm in this new place, what do I do real quick? There it is right there, pocket size for you. And then of course, I am always working on the next edition of my Layline Almanac, which is this beautiful book.
So beautiful. Yes.
And so I use it so you can kind of see it gets used. So the Layline Almanac is a weekly astro planner and sigil journal. This is my second edition, completely self-published and self-produced. It's a lot of work. So it's a full lunar calendar, a full astrological calendar from Aries season to Aries season. My biggest intention with this was to help people weave out of colonial time while still working with it, because this is just like where we are, right? And so the weeks and the monthly calendars are structured from the beginning of one zodiac season to the end of the next zodiac season, rather than from day 1 calendar day to day 30 calendar day. And then we also have sigil prompts in here to help people work with symbols in order to manifest, conjure, and call in certain energies. They're like your pets. And so, this is like my daily fucking planner. I love it. And I actually put some of those beginning practices with astrology in here. When I was first learning, I would take 3 months and just like notice where the moon is at. And then just notice how that impacts me. Right? Now, obviously I'm a Virgo Mars. So when the moon is in Mars, oh my God, I get when the moon is in Virgo, I get so much stuff done, right? And so just understanding those personal rhythms. So there's parts here where you can write the date by understanding where the planets are, what moon phase you're in. So it's a deeper awareness tool, really.
And you're making one for this or for next. Oh, wait, that goes from 2025 to the beginning of because you started in March.
Yeah.
Okay, you started in Aries season.
Right. So the next edition will be next Aries season. And this
Okay.
edition actually features all of the liberation dates across the world.
Wow.
So like, let's get geographically literate, and I think it's easier for those of us that are really into pattern recognition to remember what countries gained their liberation during when, if we're understanding the zodiac season that liberation occurred in.
Yep.
Which is why the Horn of Africa video that I put out was featuring all of the African countries that gained liberation during Cancer season.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because that's the birthplace of humanity as well.
Yeah.
Cancer.
That was brilliant. And so people can look at your almanac and literally find those liberation dates all throughout.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know if you guys will be able to see, but
amazing.
yeah. A lot of work. So yeah, I don't know if you guys can see, but Cancer season liberation dates, they're like marked.
Wow. Yeah, I can see it all.
Yeah, it's a lot of research.
Okay, I feel like I have to have you on another show to just talk about the self-publishing and everything because
Okay.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations. That is
Thank you.
huge.
I would
Yeah.
love a deal with like Llewellyn Books.
Yeah. Totally.
That would be like,
We're putting it out there.
This is shameless plug. Yeah.
So, if someone wants to work with you one-to-one, if someone wants to purchase an almanac, where do they go? How do people find you?
My website is sakisavavi.earth. So SAKISAVAVI.earth. Outside of that, my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Substack is Saki Savaki. So SAKISAVAVI. My TikTok is Celestial Saki, Celestial with an S. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, it has been beyond sitting here talking with you. I feel like the work you're doing is so Aquarian. It's next level. It's also so grounded though. And it is like deeply rooted and it's much needed right now. So thank you so much for being on the show today. And
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. I want to know, does anyone in the audience have any questions? Do you want to step up to the Q&A? No questions?
Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to wrap it up. Thank you everyone for being here. Happy solstice in, let's see, 18 minutes. And yeah. And thank you so much for being here too.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yep.
Thank you guys for coming and thank you guys for watching.
Yep. Thank you. Until next time.
Bye.